We are recording and we'll get started. Again, thank you everyone for joining. My name is Jeff Hammond. I'm an engineer with Birch Transportation. We're an engineering firm who contracts with the Nashville Department of Transportation on the traffic calming program. And we're here tonight to talk about Lakeland Pointe. Lakeland Pointe is getting close to claiming an award, I think, for the longest lasting traffic calming project we've had. You guys put this application in back in the summer of 2019, and we began having, which is not that unusual actually, but we began having meetings on this back a little over a year ago. So this one's been around a while, and a lot of what we're talking about tonight is kind of a process to resurrect this project. It's kind of toiled on some of the petition process, and we're trying to bring that back and bring some resolution to it, whether we do the project or not. We've got a plan for how to kickstart this one again and move forward and not belabor it anymore. So what I'm going to do is go through basically three portions of information. The first one is just kind of, again, an overview of the program and just a refresher on how we got to this point with Lakeland Drive and then look at some of the tools that we have planned in the proposed project right now, and then we'll look at the program itself, or the project itself.
Isn't this what we covered at the last meeting?
Probably. Yeah, we've had two meetings.
And we had the meeting, and we had the petition going out, and I volunteered to help do the petitions, and that was, I never heard another word from anybody.
Yep. So we did the petitions. They went out. We got really close on the Lakeland Drive petitions. I'll get into more of this about what has changed in the program, but we got really close in Lakeland, but we did not get the full 70%. We got almost nowhere on Emory. So we had one project that was in one place and one in the other. So that's why we're trying to bring this back together and kind of put a bow on it. But absolutely, we've had two meetings on this. This information, that's, again, I'm going to try to go kind of quickly through it, because if you've been around any time, you've seen this before, but we know we have new people that have not seen this. We want to make sure we have an opportunity to get it in front of them. This is a residential street program. Streets just like Lakeland and Emory are the types of projects that we're looking for. We do focus on physical solutions as opposed to just kind of enforcement or education, signage, and those types of things. Those things have a place, but we know that by putting something physically in the road, that is far and away the most effective thing we can do to reduce speeds. We do concentrate on reducing speeds and not so much cut through traffic. We're not trying to shift it onto other streets. We're trying to keep the traffic where it is, but just get it to slow down and people to drive more responsibly in your neighborhood. We now say this is a street program. Back when you guys were accepted into the program, it was more of a neighborhood. So we're looking at two streets here. By today's standards, we would probably just be looking at Lakeland, but Emory came in with it, and during that time in the program, we accepted both. So we are still looking at both streets, Lakeland Drive and Emory Drive. We always like to plug Hub Nashville because we have certain tools in our toolbox, but there may be other neighborhood needs, and Hub Nashville is a great place to go. Hub.Nashville.gov, and that's for all branches of metro government and services that you need. You guys probably remember this is a very, very much in-demand program. We had a lot of interest and a lot of applications onto these streets, and so Lakeland and Emory were selected back in the summer of 2021 as one of probably 24 or 25 projects at that time. And this slide shows how you got there. We actually go out and collect data and then rate how your street fares against all the other applications that were taken at that time. And these are the metrics that we use to evaluate those and prioritize those projects. About 70% of it is safety related data, being about 50% being speed, 20% being crashes. And then the other 30% has to do more with multimodal type access. largely in your area has to do with people wanting to walk on the street. We know that those desires for a safe and high quality of life neighborhood go hand in hand with traffic calming. And so there's some active transportation metrics in there as well. So as I mentioned, these are the two streets that continue to be in our plan. Those were the two streets that were on your application back at that time as well. And this is a map showing those. The green lines are what is in the proposal, and then the red lines and purple lines just show other major streets. And we sometimes use this to demonstrate that we really do focus on local streets as opposed to collectors, which are the purple streets. They're a little bit higher volume and intended to be a little bit of a faster street. And then arterials are the red ones, and that's the major ones. That's your Elm Hill Pikes and Donaldson Pikes and so forth in this area. Back to process. So this one it's not so straightforward as this graph may indicate for Lakeland Pointe, but obviously you all applied and were selected, and have made it through a couple of meetings in the design process. This says meeting 2. This is actually, I think, at least meeting 3, and we've had conference calls and stuff along the way, I know. So we're at this would be the last meeting that we would have. Again, just one last opportunity to explain to you where we've been in this petition process and where we're going. So as we discussed, you all had a petition where someone was going door to door in these neighborhoods. This is how we left it back at our last meeting. Someone was going door to door to the neighborhoods and actually collecting signatures from folks. And we required at that time for you to get 70% of all the homeowners on the street. And that was the same for every neighborhood in Nashville. And since we have been working with neighborhoods and doing that, there were a lot of neighborhoods just like you guys that would go out there and work, and they would get a substantial number, but couldn't get to the 70% for one reason or another. And it wasn't because people were not in favor of it. Largely, it was what we were generally finding was that you just couldn't contact 70% of the homeowners. You had in some neighborhoods a lot of rentals and absentee owners that were in different states, even properties and trusts and all kind of things that kept us from being able to realize 70% of the homeowners. And so the new requirement is that we send out postcards, much like hopefully you got for this meeting. We do that same process when it comes time to ballot. You see our next step on this slide is the online ballot. And the main difference between the online ballot and the petition is that one is we send those postcards out, and so a resident doesn't have anything to do with this. We don't put neighborhood volunteers in the position of trying to go door to door and get this anymore. We send the postcard out, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a little bit. And we take that information back through an online survey through Nashville.gov. The other big difference is there is no set number. So before, if there were 100 affected parcels on the traffic calming project, you had to come back with 70 signatures, to reach that 70%. We don't do that anymore. What we do now is we look at the total number of votes, and at the end of the voting period, we just look at that, and if 66, 2/3 of them are in favor of the project, we do it. So there's no set number that we're looking for. You don't have to reach any percentage of the total population of the residents on the street, if that makes sense. We do it just like any other election, with the exception of 2/3 of the people have to approve it. So that's where we are now, and what we wanted to do is get back in front of the community one last time, just to explain that change mainly and say, we're going to, if you all are agreeable to the plan as we're going to present it here in just a second, we're ready to send those ballots out, and then we'll kind of leave that petition process behind. That'll put everybody on an equal footing. We'll know exactly where the neighborhood stands in terms of being for the proposal or not in favor of it. And at the end of 6 weeks, we're done. So there's no more. We take a lot of the guesswork out of that. So I'm going to go through some of the countermeasures that we have in the plan right now. The plan really hasn't changed substantially, if at all, since you all saw it at that last meeting, probably back whenever that was, September or something like that. We still using speed cushions, you know, and you probably are familiar with these. They're preformed, manufactured rubber speed cushions that we bolt into the pavement. They're about 3 inches high, and they can be different lengths. And what we are proposing is a 10.5-foot length speed cushion. That's kind of the middle. They get longer. The longer you get them, the faster you can go over them. So we typically recommend using the very shortest ones on some of our most urban streets. You guys are more in a suburban type of an area, and we've found had really good success with the 10.5-foot cushions on streets like yours, where streets are set or houses are set back a little further off the street. And it's just a little more of a suburban context. We can orient those in different ways, just depending mainly on the width of the street, and so we have different configurations and ways to put that. Let's skip that. We can come back to it if there's questions. We do have a feedback sign proposed, and I'll show you where that is or remind you where that is. You may have seen these as well. The posted speed is there, but as you drive past it, it will also give you a display of the speed using radar. We found that to have some effect, especially at the beginning or at the end of a project. We use these a lot when we can't use speed cushions. Maybe there's too much traffic on the street, or there's too much grade, too many curves, that kind of thing. So some of that plays a part in why we're recommending one of these on Lakeland as well. So here's the plan, and I'll try to describe it a little bit. So starting from McGavick Pike, right now you're just seeing Lakeland Drive. So the purple line there is just the outline of Lakeland. And as you turn off of McGavick Pike and go up the hill, that kind of fits the description of what I was just saying. It's a pretty good uphill grade right there, and you've got some curve in the middle of that hill. And so right there, a few hundred feet back from McGavick Pike, we would place 2 radar feedback signs, 1 in each direction. So shortly after you turn onto Lakeland from McGavick, you're going to see that, and it's going to give you a speed readout. It's probably more beneficial for people who are finishing their trip on Lakeland and coming down the hill toward McGavick, just because it's coming downhill, and there's probably a higher likelihood that people have picked up speed on that downhill part. So, but in any case, we would have 1 in each direction there. And then continuing east from that point, that begins our series of speed cushions. So everywhere you see that little symbol with a C in it, that would indicate a set of speed cushions. I think the width here, I think it was just 2 speed cushions wide. Yeah, so your width is about 21, 22 feet between the edges of pavement. So it would just be 2 sets of speed cushions wide. The yellow numbers that you see there just tell us roughly where that would go. Those are addresses on Lakeland, and so that would be, the first one would be roughly at the property at 2555. We can pinpoint that a little bit more for you. I'll show you how we do that, and you'll be able to get those plans and really dig into them and figure that out if you're really interested exactly where those are going. But we do, we've spaced these to be about 400 to 600 feet apart. We find by doing that, we get a good consistent slow speed throughout the length of the road. We also avoid curves, like I mentioned. We avoid hills, and we also avoid driveways. Certainly intersections, but driveways become really important too. You guys have more frontage than a lot of roads, so we didn't have a lot of trouble spotting these in. But sometimes when you have a street with a lot of driveways, one after the next, it's hard to get some in without blocking them. So, but we didn't have that issue here. So 7 sets of speed cushions along the length of Lakeland Drive, and again, you can see those. And then this shows up where this slide shows the Emory portion of the project, which just goes from Lakeland north and curls around to Donaldson Pike as well. 6 sets on that. It's a little bit of a shorter segment. This part doesn't have any vertical curves, hills, or anything that we had to avoid. So it's a pretty similar arrangement there. The way you would dig into this, as I mentioned, we do have more detail. This slide is kind of an overview. You get to see the whole project at a glance, but what we make available on the website, the NDOT website, is the actual construction plans, which are these. And so in that you can go through. They're not really long, but there may be, I don't know, 10 or 12 sheets worth. Probably not even that many. But you can go in and you can actually see your property and where your property sits in relation to any of the speed cushions. So on this slide here, it's just one of the sheets off. It says this speed cushion would be 47 feet east of the driveway at 2550 Lakeland. So there shouldn't be any question about what's being proposed. We like to make as much information available to you and your neighbors about what the project is proposing to do. So when that goes to a ballot, you have all of that in front of you. Just a few of the nuts and bolt details about the ballot process. We send those cards out to any homeowner or property owner along the affected street. And so what you're seeing here is a snapshot of Lakeland between McGavick and Donaldson Pike. I don't remember how many that is, but there's a couple of things to point out, I guess, here. One is some of those properties are not residential. There's a church and maybe some vacant property. We don't send ballot cards to those. We just send them to the residential uses. We're not going to send it to, I don't remember if Sonic is on your street, but it's one of those parcels down there. We're not going to send Sonic. We're not going to let them vote. You do see over on the eastern end of the project, I don't even know what you call them. It's like townhouses, I suppose, but where everyone owns their own building, but it's on a piece of property that's owned in common. We will be balloting all of the residents there because they own that piece of property in common that does meet otherwise the qualifications of the project that is being adjacent to the right of way on Lakeland. So anyway, that's a snapshot of who will get the card. You may have a neighbor that lives on that street that says, I didn't get a card, and it's because we send it to the homeowner on record. So if they're renting the property, they won't get a card unless they happen to share the address with the owner. We're going to send that to the owner wherever that is. We're also only going to send one card per owner. So if one person owns multiple properties on that street, they're only going to get one card. We're also going to do these separately. Emory will have a ballot, and Lakeland will have a ballot. We would. I mean, it's a joint project, but I think these are separate enough. I don't think we would have any issue doing one and not doing the other if that's the way the balloting came back. But anyway, we'll send the cards out all at the same time, but we will be looking at those as two different streets. I mentioned it is a 6-week balloting period. That gives us a real finite time. We're already past the holidays by the time this 6 weeks runs out, so no worries there. But that gives us a good firm date, which we're done. We'll stop the balloting period. We'll look at the results and let you all know if we're moving forward with the project or not. And then I discussed the 66% majority that we're looking for. I think I've covered everything. The little boxes there on the left show you what that balloting card looked like. So what you get in the mail is a postcard with a QR code on it. And that gives you a direct link into that voting website. There's also just a normal website. There's also a phone number. So if you have a neighbor that doesn't have internet access, they can certainly call and we can talk them through that voting process. There's a code at the bottom of the in the little blank area below that blue box, there will be a sticker with a unique code that's unique to your address, and so we ask that that be entered in the ballot. That just lets us know that the person we intend to be voting is voting for that. And then the snapshot below is just a picture of what the online ballot looks like at Nashville.gov. I went through about as quickly as I can go through where we are to date. Again, you guys have a lot of history with this, and it may have been around this for a while, so I apologize if that was too much of a rehash. But what questions do you have about any of this?
Because we hammock from the old method to like this new balloting method, is there going to be adjusted verbiage on that card saying like, hey, even if you already signed the petition, you really do need to vote on this because it won't matter?
Yeah, that's a great question, and like I said, there's you guys are not unique to this. There were a number of neighborhoods that started into that petition process, and then it just kind of got stuck, and we never canceled it. We never made a decision one way or the other, and part of that was because it was a petition. We didn't know how the neighborhood felt about it. That was one of the big drawbacks to it. Now we know when you can vote against the project, you're welcome to do that. And we have a much better sense of if people are actually opposed to it. Before, all we know is we didn't have enough signatures. We didn't know why that was. We didn't know if it was because they couldn't track down the homeowner. They didn't know if that was because there was a scary dog in the yard when they went to the door. You didn't know, and so. Yeah, we will make that as clear as we can that you may have signed a petition, but that doesn't count anymore. And so we've got a template that we've used on past neighborhoods that does our best to communicate that, and hopefully people will pay attention to that. You guys can help get that word out, as best as you can through social media or however, you're able to communicate with neighbors. Help us try to reinforce that this is kind of a reset for the project.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the process or the proposal, the project itself?
Yes, I do. Just two questions.
Okay.
Number one, when should we expect to receive the ballots? When does that process begin?
That is a great question. Let me go to this next slide here to talk about that. So we asked from this point, if we have general consensus on the plan, we asked for 2 to 3 weeks. We really don't need that long. What we will do next is we will send that plan to the city, and they will post it on their website so that everyone can have a chance to go get that information. And then as soon as that is posted, we can send those cards. So I would say today's Monday, certainly, probably by the end of this week. I would say by the first of next week. We're getting where we're sending it. We're already sending it right in the middle of the Christmas rush. I don't think that's a problem. We're not, given that, you got 6 weeks to vote on it. So that would be the only thing. We're probably not going to send them out the week of Christmas or something like that. But assuming we can get it out later this week or first of next week, we would probably go ahead and do that.
And the other question is, it looks like on Lakeland and Emory, there's like seven pads. That seems a lot for that short distance.
Yeah, I don't know what the lengths of those are, but the way we come up with those is we look at that distance, and then we look at any control points that you have. And right now for Emory, there's really no stops in between Donaldson and Lakeland. So we just look at that whole distance, and then we're looking again for something like 400 to 600 feet on this, and that's how many we come up with. We just know from experience that's a pretty good spacing without being just totally obnoxious and overbearing for people who have to drive across these every day. who are doing the right thing.
Which has been my experience in some other cities that I've traveled. It's like, it's just, you do your best to avoid those streets.
Yeah.
They're very troublesome. I honestly, I don't know.
Well, that's the trade-off, and that's the reason why we allow the neighborhood to vote on it, because we know not everybody's in favor of it, and this is the best way we know how to get good feedback from everyone. Make sure everyone's first of all had a chance to see what's being proposed, and then give us feedback. I can't think of another project that cities do with infrastructure where you actually get to say, do you want it or not? But it's kind of unique about
I
traffic.
appreciate the opportunity. I really do.
Yes, sir. And we've had projects that did not pass. Most of them, the heavy majority, do pass, because by the time they get to this point, there's been enough input, and I think frankly the problem is bad enough that people are ready. They're just ready to have anything. But we do have projects that don't make it. So.
But one final question, based on the new balloting process, it sounds like if only 10 people voted and 7 of those 10 voted for it, it would pass.
It would.
It's nothing to do with the number of residences or anything.
No, but we haven't had a situation where voter turnout was just abysmally low. Typically most streets, it's been in the order of like probably 20 to 40% participation, which we think is pretty good. I mean, it's gone as high as 50 and 60% in some neighborhoods, but we haven't had any that were just 2 or 3 people were deciding for the whole street. It could happen though, and if we had a really extremely low turnout like that, I guess we would make some decision whether or not we needed to come back and talk in with a neighborhood or just what. I don't know, but that has not been our experience.
And then what has the feedback been from the fire department and the police?
Good question.
Because,
So
I mean, the primary, I mean, Lakeland is a primary cutoff for all the emergency vehicles. And quite frankly, it's the only vehicles I see speeding on Lakeland, but I'm not here all the time.
Yeah.
And I see that as helping, not hurting. Making sure that they have access and they can get to our house quickly when they need to.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's part of their rationale too. So NDOT has met with fire department, especially police to a slightly lesser degree. I mean, they're certainly important as well, but they don't have the big trucks that need to get somewhere the way the fire department does.
Right.
So that's the reason we use cushions now mostly, where it's 2 little individual pads instead of one big long table, and they certainly make the other kind, but we opt for cushions wherever possible, because, and I think we showed it in that slide, that fire truck there, the reason for that gap is to try and minimize impact on larger wheelbase vehicles like ambulances and fire trucks, to slow them down as little as possible, getting where they need to go. But overall, you're right. I think they see the bigger picture here and what NDOT is trying to do in terms of preventing some of these serious crashes in the first place. And so if there's less that they have to respond to, the better. And if it means they get delayed by a couple of seconds, on each cushion coming down the street, I think on balance, they're very in favor of it. So they're very supportive of the program.
Thank you.
If you think of other questions, let me finish going through this, and I'll give you our contact information. I'll put that up on the screen, and you can feel free to reach out to us later. But after this voting period ends, assuming the neighborhood votes in favor of the project, we would then order the materials. Metro does not stock these; they just take up too much room. There's just not enough storage space, so that adds some time to the project. That's 3 or 4 months there, getting the rubber back, and then it gets scheduled to install. That takes another period of time, and so you're looking at still a good bit of time, 6 months-ish from this point, before anything is implemented. And I wish the numbers weren't that big. I wish I could tell you it was coming sooner than that, but that's the reality. Hopefully that's a conservative estimate. And, if it does pass, that it can be done quicker than that, but we like to lay that out as well. That puts us into, probably mid to late summer, I guess, at this point, would be kind of where would be looking at. That's our contact information. Gil Thomas is our Metro employee that manages this program, and he's got help from us. Again, I'm Jeff with the consulting team, so feel free to reach out to either or both of us if you do have any questions.
Mr. Hammond, can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry for being late to the meeting here.
Sure.
Traffic was crazy out there. Did you say that you're looking for 66% of the respondents to the program?
That's right. Now that's one of the big changes for this neighborhood as opposed to where you've been. So you all were trying to collect petitions and reach our old goal, which was 70% of all the homeowners that were affected on the street. And
right.
That was a pretty tall order. We recognize.
It was.
So, yeah. So and it was for a lot of neighborhoods. And so a lot of folks were in your same boat. And we've been transitioning those neighborhoods from that petition to this ballot. So yes, the city kind of takes it back over and sends cards out and collects those ballots. And yes, it's independent of there's no number that we're looking for. We're just looking for 2/3 of whoever votes, 2/3 being in support of the project.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. And sometimes the question comes up, does the neighborhood know where they stand? As we get to week 4, week 5, closing in on week 6 at the end of the voting, if you have a neighborhood champion, like we've had in the past, NDOT, we don't get those responses. They go straight into the Nashville.gov servers and the IT people and all of that. And so they have access to those results real time as they come in. And so I think they will give an update as you get a little bit later, just so you'll know where that process stands. And so that may be helpful. It may not. I think some people check in and some people don't. But any final questions, thoughts? Again, feel free to reach out to us even after this. And that's especially true if you would like the link to this meeting. It will be posted on Metro 3's YouTube channel. So all of the public access stuff is housed on their YouTube channel, and all of these traffic calming meetings go on there. So you can kind of Google that and find it, or feel free to reach out and we can send you a link to that if this is something that you would like to share with neighbors. I think that's it. Again, really appreciate y'all taking the time to tune in tonight and help us spread the word, I guess, from this point forward. I think we're at a place now where NDOT has made some terrific changes to this program. Hopefully we won't get in another situation where we get stymied like we have in the past, but we've got good track record from this point now with projects being able to continue to move forward. With that, I will thank you. I'll give back the balance of your evening. Thanks again for joining us, and hope you have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.